Hi, I'm Curtis Thompson and welcome to 320 Workshops. In this video, we're going to refresh a pair of end tables that are starting to show their age and need to have something done with the finish. The finish is an older finish that gets watermarks, so the client wants to put a more durable finish on it.
All right, first step is to disassemble the table. That way we'll get to each of the parts easier when we're cleaning and refinishing them. I'm using an old Yankee screwdriver, which is one of my favorite tools to remove slotted screws. Now we're taking off the metal hardware. It's just one with two little tiny nails. All right, we got it in the pieces. Now, first step is to clean and degrease. Probably not all that necessary, but I always like to clean it off. We're going to strip this, so in my mind, we're getting all the waxes off to help make it strip easier. And now for the fun part. We're going to strip the old finish off. This is like an old lacquer finish on it. It gums up really fast. I am using a little bit of plastic over the stripper to hold it in and not evaporate so quickly. After about 10 minutes, when we pulled it off, it was really sticky and gummy. So there's no one good way to take off finish. It seems like every time I do it, I find a different way that works. Started scraping off and it just was so gummy, it was hard coming off. After a couple different tries, I found that scrubbing in the finish, rubbing it off with a wire brush or some rough steel wool, I was able to just kind of pull it off with a paper towel, and that worked really pretty well. I got to the point here where I was just wiping it on and wiping it off with the paper towel, and it was actually coming off pretty easy this way. After it was completely stripped, I wiped it down with trisodium phosphate.
Hi, it's been almost a year that I started making these videos. I've really enjoyed it and I hope you have too. So if you like these videos and want to see more of them, please like and subscribe. Thanks a lot.
After we get all the finish stripped off, now we're going to start sanding. I'm right here using a hotel card with the sandpaper wrapped around it to get into the little grooves of the reading on the front of the drawers. So about now, people are probably looking and thinking that I'm crazy for using a power orbital sander on a veneered piece of wood. I've got the sander turned down just about as low as it'll go in its speed. And I'm using 220 sandpaper on it, and I'm using a very light touch. It does clean it up really well, and I'm very cautious not to burn through the veneer. It does go fast. And use a sanding block on the edges to get all that off. The stringing is really showing up on the front of this piece. Here I'm actually using a card scraper to get some of the finish that was left over off. Now these front edges of the table are a bit tricky because there's two little beads on the front. So I'm very delicate using the scraper to kind of ease off some of it. This has had stripper on it and it just didn't take it off very well. I'll use this pointed scraper to get into between the two beads. It's coming off pretty well. Now I'm going to brush off all the excess dust, and I'm going to use that hotel card again to get down into that groove. I actually filed the edge of the card down almost to like sharpening it so that I could get down into there a little bit deeper. It worked really pretty well. It's a good just regular block to sand with. So while we're working around the pedestal, we need to get in a lot of grooves and a lot of coves. So what I've got here is a couple things I like to use. These are little rubber sanding blocks that are different radius. That helps get in there. You just hold the sandpaper around that and you can get into a lot of the curves. I have an assortment of scrapers, just different types of scrapers to get in and around. A chisel that I use kind of as a corner to groove into the little grooves. Basically what you got to do is use whatever you got to get into the space that you need to get into. So, we got a slight change to how we're approaching this project. I sent the client a picture, just a progress picture of where we're at, just like this, showing how everything's stripped down. But it didn't have the wings, the leaves attached. So when she saw the picture, she said, I really like the way that looks. I think it would look better without the wings on the sides where we're using them. So what we're going to do is, we're going to go ahead and finish this off as it is, and finish the wings, but we're not going to attach them. So if in the future she decides you want to, it should be a fairly simple process to refit them. So what we've got here is on the side, this was not finished because you had the holes here for the leaf. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of mahogany veneer, attach it to the side so I can stain that to match the rest of it and it won't show. There's the little mortises for the hinges. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a very small piece of wood. I'm going to tack that in place so it can be stained, but again, can be removable. I'll probably put it on with hot glue so it'll be fairly easy to remove. I can remove it and replace this at any time I'd want to. So it's a no harm, no foul kind of change. But I do think this table will look really nice without those wings. I think it'll make a little bit more sense. Now, the front has this double beading and the side's just going to have this thumbnail for the leaf. But I think it's similar enough. I don't think it shows up as anything uniquely wrong with it. So that's what we're going to do with this piece, just to make it fit the area they're using it in a little bit better. We've now sanded both of the tables and we need to address the sides. So we're going to hide this secondary wood that was underneath the leaves. And we did that. I had a piece of mahogany left over from another project. And I've taken that, I've re-sawn it and cut it to dimension to fit into this section right there. So now what we'll do is get that glued in place, and then we'll be able to start the finish process.
life ain't just a dollar sign. Clocking miles, throttle down, helps you leave it all behind. It doesn't get any better than this, when you live what you love and love what you live. Let's ride, saddle up, American style, let's ride.
To install the patches where these mortises were, I first had to cut the edges square. They were just a little bit of an angle or round over to it. And then I had already ripped some thin stock poplar to put in here. And then we're going to use some hide glue to glue these in place. And we'll install them with a little bit of blue tape and then let them set till tomorrow morning.
All right, we're going to mix up some de-waxed shellac so I can put a coat of shellac on all the parts before we begin to stain it. That'll kind of help us be able to get it a little bit more even with, we have some new wood, some old wood. I don't know how well they match. You know, when it was originally manufactured, it was made dark. I think most of the woods are going to match, but that'll help us a little bit. The pedestal being a softer wood will definitely get darker than the hardwood of the mahogany. So we're going to try and hopefully blend that out a little bit by making some shellac. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm using a 1/4 pound of a Platina Platinum Blonde Extra Pale de-waxed shellac. And that, to make a 2 pound cut, I'm going to mix this 4 ounces in with a pint of denatured alcohol. So I've got a measuring cup here and some denatured alcohol. So we'll measure that out first. There we go. Okay, that's 16 ounces of denatured alcohol. Now, I have a scale that I usually will measure it out because I don't always make this much at one time, but I don't need to do that because this is measured out, and I weighed it, and it is just a touch over 4 ounces, so that will work. Now, one of the secrets that I have is that I like to grind the flakes till they're just almost a powder. It'll help it dissolve quicker. It usually takes overnight to dissolve, so this does speed that process up a little bit. I still leave it set overnight. And you can see it's a nice chunky flakes. So I have a little coffee grinder here. It's a little more than I wanted to put in there at one time. Now, I'm going to need to get a glass jar to mix these in. All right, I think this will work. Now what I'll do is I will shake this up every once in a while for the next couple hours and let it set overnight. It should be good to go in the morning. So that's how I make my shellac. Pretty simple.
First thing I want to do is filter out any flakes that might not have fully dissolved. So I'm going to decant this into another container through the filter. It'll take a little bit of time, then we'll get all those done. I've wiped out the jar itself, and now I'll pour that back into the jar for storage. Then I'm going to put that into another container. I will add a little more alcohol to thin this down just a bit so that the sealer will be thinner. Once the shellac dried, I rubbed it down with 4/0 steel wool and a tack cloth, and then began the staining process. I had taken a sample piece of mahogany and tried a couple different stains on it and showed it to the client so she could pick out something that was close to the other furniture in the room that she wanted to match. Really is a simple matter of wiping it on and rubbing it with a dry cloth to kind of even out the stain and make sure there's no streaks. All the parts got stained. So then I wanted to put the two pieces together so I can make sure that they were stained the same and were matching. Once the stain has dried, we're now going to rub it down again with 4/0 steel wool and then tack that off. Now where I'd added those pieces in to fill in the mortises, I'm using a touch-up pen to color that in and match the surrounding wood. We're using General Finishes Armor Seal. I apply it with a rag to give it a nice rubbed in finish. This is a good durable finish and I've had great luck with it in the past. Now we're going to address the hardware. First start with these metal toe caps. They're a brass plated steel and I'm just trying to take off the antiquing and make the brass show up a little bit better. Here the handles are solid brass and I'm buffing these up a little bit. I've already cleaned the antiquing off of these. Once I've gotten it polished pretty good with those, I like to use a brass bristled brush to kind of burnish the hardware with it. And then we're going to give it a coat of lacquer to keep it from tarnishing more. You can see the one in the upper left hand corner is discolored. That was one that the steel had actually rusted and a lot of the brass was gone, so I had to hit it with a little bit of a gold tinted spray paint. Next day we're back to the same routine. We're going to rub it down with steel wool, tack that off, and give it another coat of finish. This piece will get 3 coats in total. Now let's get the hardware reattached and put this table back together. Okay, the client's on the way over to pick these up, and I'm pretty excited for her to see them. I think they turned out really nice. Taking that dark finish off, removing these leaves, kind of, I think, makes the whole table stand out a little bit more. A lot of the details, the stringing, the reading, I think all kind of disappeared with that dark finish. And then by brightening up the brass, it just takes on a whole new look. Thanks for stopping by.